decided that there we have the 4 recorders.
Very nice.
You know, I only have these so you can have the LEDs going around like this. It's just fascinating, absolutely fascinating.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I remember learning recorder back at school, and it looked nothing like that.
yeah. Well, I don't want to hurt you. Well, why not hurt your feelings? When you were back at school, they were probably using wire recorders.
Well,
That's
yeah,
being really, you don't even know what they are.
no,
Before they had tape, they had wire.
right,
And they actually put wire along. That's when they discovered they could magnetic things. So if you're going to have magnetics, you're going to use a bit of iron, steel wire.
right.
And then they discovered they could get a thing called fidelity by using a high frequency to push the audio signal up into a medium range within the metal, so that the audio would be in an area where it would be able to modulate the magnetic density on the medium you're recording on.
Yep.
So that it was in an area which was, because obviously obviously, God damn it. I mean, obviously you know this. If you're just going to put raw audio onto a metal thing, then when there's little audio, it's not going to be magnetizing the metal as much. So if you shove something in there, higher frequencies, which means it's magnetizing anyway, and it's in a linear part of the curve, because you can saturate the metal with too much energy, and if you operate roughly in a happy medium in the middle there somewhere, then your audio is then linearly recorded as such.
That's amazing.
Obviously.
Yeah, of course.
So that's called biasing. It's called audio bias, and then when they switch to tape or whatever, they find the tape would have different oh God. Anyway, that's how it works. Bloody hell. Jeez. Well, I think this is part 5.
Yeah.
And it's now I like putting a date stamp on these things, but it does matter. Okay, it's the 15th of March, 2024.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk. You've had a new revelation.
Yeah, it was a new experience, and I just thought, wow, because it was so out of the blue, I just thought I've got to tell you about this, and I try and document all the different encounters that I have with non-humans and stuff like that. My life is a little bit different to other people, where I get regularly observed. I can sense this, but I can't see anything around me. It's just a very intense feeling.
So really what you're saying is that you're special, and you are very special.
And I need a very tall pedestal.
And well, you're special. And obviously because you're special.
And I should wear one of those stovepipe hats, so then I'm a lot taller than anybody else.
Well, actually, as we were saying, and for those of you watching at home, looking at the snooker, the red ball is beside the blue one in black and white. Oh, yes, you were talking about something.
Yes,
right.
I was.
Well, I think that's enough of me interrupting, so take it away.
Okay, yeah, sure. So I get observed a lot, and I've just grown to get used to that. It's like when I'm in the sleep state, when I'm lying down, we're getting ready to go to sleep, in the phase state rather. So the state between awake and asleep. I'll often, eyes closed, I'll often get different entities, non-humans, sometimes human faces as well, come and peer at me. They come and look over, and some will sort of like be frowning, and then others will all be smiling, and I've just got used to it. So it would freak out a lot of other people, but it just happens. So this is what I'm trying to say with this whole thing of being observed. I've just kind of got used to it, and I've got on with it. And what happened to me is yesterday or the day before. I was it was
So,
going
from a
to,
date point of view, we're talking about 2 days ago. That would be the
yeah.
13th. Yeah, okay. Ides of March stuff, okay? No?
Yeah, so I was just getting ready for bed. I was in the bathroom, and I got the real distinct sensation, like I've known many times before, that I was being observed.
Um,
And
can you
so
describe that for people?
yeah,
What
yeah,
sensations?
yeah, it is almost like um somebody watching you, as if they are, say, like a scientist observes, say, a lab rat, and they're there with their clipboard, and they're just making notes. Yes, it's eaten its cheese. It's done this, but and it's going through like checks. Um, so that was the sensation that I got, and so I decided that I'd speak telepathically to it. And so, just to recap, to speak telepathically is to speak as if you're speaking right now, but in your mind, okay, but not verbally. So I'd said to it, I know you're there. Uh, all I want is I want to learn and I want to grow. I said, I want to see you with my own eyes. Um, and I added that I wanted to have a go in their craft, fly in their craft or mode of transport. And I kind of chuckled to myself, and I said, well, that's not a lot to ask, is it? And I just left it like that. I was very, very
Well,
blasé, just
especially since you hadn't booked a ticket or anything.
yeah, that's right. Very nonchalantly, just talking as if I would talk to somebody at the gym, and just sort of like say about what was going on in my day. So I said that, and I just left it at that, and I went to bed. And I didn't expect anything as such to happen, but um, sure enough, I had an incredibly vivid experience where I was in an open space. It was like kind of like a park, and there was in front of me, about 20 foot in front of me, there was a large bush shrub type thing, about 10 foot tall. And I saw to the left of it, there was a huge head. It was shaped very much like a rugby ball, only a bit sort of um,
Are we talking something like lamb,
like lamb.
as in the being that Aleister Crowley was talking about?
Right. Well, I've drawn some pictures this time to help
Okay.
you. Okay, so I'm going to put that up, right? And this is exactly what I saw, right? And so it's got like a rugby ball shape, but it was a wide face as well. There were ridges that were going across the top, and it had these huge black eyes. And I couldn't see a mouth or any details there, but that was this head, and it was popped out from behind this bush, like it was hiding there, but it popped out, and it was like saying, "Psst, over here, to try and get my attention." It wanted me to see it. So, I mean, I couldn't miss it. It was absolutely huge. Um, and so I was looking at this thing, and then it stood up, and I've never been so euphoric and in awe in anything my entire life. The only equivalence of the level of joy that I was feeling at that moment would be when my wife gave birth to our boys. I was just stunned, amazed, enthralled. a whole bag of things. So I've got a picture. I've tried to do the. Um, I don't think I've quite got the perspective right, but this is it when it's sort of like it stood up. Let me sort of like back up now.
That is tall.
Yeah, now this I should be maybe an extra couple of feet taller than this, but so here it is, and basically um, it started like I was directly.
I mean, do you think this was physical, or was it some kind of projection, or was it, shall we say, a different density, as some people say?
Oh, well, some people say density. I feel it was some other sort of reality. Um, yeah. As I say, it was simply breathtaking. It was incredible, and as it stood up, and I was just looking up at it. Say if you are 6 foot away from your house, and then you look up to try and see the roof. That's kind of like how tall this thing was. It was a bit, maybe even a bit taller than that. And I just almost wanted to scream with joy at seeing it. And I said, how tall are you? And there was, and I thought in my mind at the same time, I thought it's got to be 25 foot. And a reply came back telepathically saying 17 foot 11 inches. That's how tall it was. Very specific, 17 foot 11 inches. And this thing had a companion with it that he was about 6 foot tall. And trouble is, I was so focused on the tall one that I didn't pay much attention to the short one. But I've got another picture here. Now this is what it looked like. Now it had a very wide nose, and it had cat-like eyes. And what I've done is I've kind of drawn it with like they were gems. The eyes were like crystals, but it's I think the ears were pointed, but the shape of the face and the head was correct, and it's almost like the eyes were so vibrant, and it was like you're looking at a gemstone, and the way the light catches it, and the
So they
sparkles.
weren't reptilian eyes, as somebody would, some people might suggest that was reptilian.
Yeah, it's no, it wasn't. I've seen those before. I've experienced those before, and we talked about that in a previous episode. Um, this um, even as I drew it, I thought to myself, you know what, that looks reptilian, but it's no, it was more cat-like, but it was so bright and colourful. It was the only way I can put it down on paper is that it was like gems within the eyes. So this companion was about 6 foot, and it was with the tall one. And it had walked over to me, and after I was just in awe of this huge entity, and just fixated on it. After I'd said, "How tall are you?" and I got the telepathic message of 17 foot 11 inches, the companion repeated it vocally to me in case I didn't get the the telepathic message. So he reiterated 17 foot 11 inches. But as this this tall one was walking past, I say walking, it was wearing like a black robe. There were no identifying features whatsoever. I couldn't see any hands or feet. And what it did is it was walking past me like in really slow motion, very, very slowly moving. But it was like it was floating. So I'd got the walking motion, but it was floating across in front of me. Um, Absolutely incredible, mind blowing. And but as I say, that is as much of that experience that that I've got to say. I don't know whether I managed to get on any mode of transport or craft, but that was just another thing that's come up recently. So it's worthy of note when these non-human characters appear. So just got to get a drink. Um, yeah, yeah. So it's um, like I've explained before.
Well, for the
Uh,
purposes of this, rather than say what you said before, could you mention what you said before, just so that people haven't seen the previous ones,
yeah, yeah, sure.
without
So
going
it,
into a lot of
yeah,
detail?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, with the whole thing that I do, it's kind of like the astral travel, going through a lot in the sleep state. I have done it in the meditative state as well, but I've figured out that the sleep state is exactly the same as the meditative
But
state.
is one involuntary and the other voluntary or
Um,
planned, or and maybe I've put that the different way?
Yeah, well, yes, sort of. It's planned in the sense that if I'm going into a meditative state, that I'm conscious of that happening, but still the direction of where I go and what I do is still, it's kind of potluck. It's wherever I go and wherever I end up. And like I've mentioned before, I can sometimes get a little fraction of information, and then there's other times I've got bags and bags of information. It's just as curious as that. But as far as whether I've got um, a say or a direction in where I go and what happens, is it's sort of like it really is potluck. But what seems to be a occurring theme is putting out intention. And what I'd done previously when I'd spoken
This is
to the
huge. This is you're using an awful lot of terms there, which you are intending. They're picking up on that.
yeah, yeah. And so when I realized that I was being observed, I then tried to, like I tried to do with all of them, I tried to communicate. But there seems to be a um, thing of non-interference, right? So they can observe and watch and all this sort of stuff, but they don't want to interfere with, my life and my choices and all this sort of stuff. So that's why I'm pretty sure they prefer to contact me while I'm out of body and I'm in alternate places. So I don't know whether the laws apply over there. So, I mean, like this whole thing, I've projected that I wanted to learn and I wanted to grow and I wanted to see them, and they've done exactly that. They've given me that. And I've never, no, I was going to say I've never experienced an entity so tall, but I have had a previous experience where I was with a I was I was stood with an entity that was about 10, 12 foot tall, and it didn't have any clothes. It was very slim bodied, but it had a very stern looking face. But it was perfectly gentle, and I knew it was right. It only had three fingers, and we held hands. I was just holding its hand, and we were just walking, and we were walking along. And my only worry, it felt um, absolute bliss to be with such a gentle um, entity.
When you say
And
you are walking along,
yeah,
I mean, what were you walking on? Where was the
well,
situation?
this was we were in a again some sort of like park open area. That's about as much as I can say about the area. But yes, I was with this entity, this being, and we were holding hands, and it was kind of like a parent holds the hand of a child, and I was just walking with it.
Were you
Um,
always holding its hand? In other words, what I'm saying is, was it in some way its energy field was linking with your energy field? So, but were you at any time separate? Did the
um,
experience start when you held a hand? What?
yeah, yes, I think we were. I think we were when we met, and then we held hands and we walked. And um, my only concern, my fear was that somebody else would see him and get scared and hurt him in some way.
Now,
Uh,
when you say somebody else, does that mean that the area that you were in was familiar? Like an ordinary country park. In other words, you were still here on Earth, so to speak. I mean, what
yeah,
gave you the impression that you would be subtly seen?
yeah, yeah. It felt very much like we were, just in a park in England, um, just walking around. It was
Was there anything in the park which
area.
was familiar?
No, no, there was nothing. I'm afraid that I can
I mean,
give
what
you that.
about the sky? What about the
Yeah,
trees? I mean, what?
yeah, yeah. Just it was a blue sky, some clouds about, not much. It was I would say 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Right.
It was yeah. It was like
Did
it
the
was
season?
oh daylight.
Did the season that you were experiencing in this experience? Uh, was it the same season that there was sort of outside, like as you were in whatever part of the world you were in, which is southwest
Um,
England? Is that right?
yeah, yeah. Well, I'm Central England, Shropshire,
Right.
and uh, no, well, I'm checking my memory now because this was a while ago that this particular experience happened. There were leaves falling. They hadn't all fallen, but it was just turning autumn, and uh, yeah, so it was reasonably warm still, and yeah, yeah, it was just a
But was your reality at the time autumn?
no,
So
no,
what
it
was the
was.
reality that you should have been in?
Yeah, it was at that time. It was more springtime.
So that would mean that you were not in the same place
Yeah,
at the
yeah,
same time.
yeah, yeah. So that was that experience. There's nothing more to add other than the fact that it was just I remember him. Look, he had this quite a stern face. It was like an odd shape, kind of like you would draw an animal's paw, kind of like down, and then the three bumps on the top, and it comes down, and then a stern-looking eyes. But he was gentle as anything. So yeah, yeah. So I just remember feeling sad to have left him um, afterwards. So as with this experience with this
Well,
character,
let's go further into that, into the most recent one. I mean,
yeah.
what was the bee's knees? What was happening? Was there a cause? Was there a reason why you were there? And did you accomplish that reason or this?
Well, as far as I'm getting, it was for me just to literally observe them and see them as like really up close. So I've stood before this giant of an amazing sight. It was almost like being stood in front of a tree and all the huge looking up into the huge branches. And so it was right there in front of me, like literally 6 foot away from me. And so I'm just looking up, just in utter awe and amazement. I do remember having a similar sort of feeling in this actual reality when I was at Mexico and I swam with whale sharks. And you're in the water there, and this huge huge thing just keeps on going and going and going. It's just absolutely amazing. And it was just a similar feeling, So yeah, yeah, it was just it was
So
one of the
you were at what sort of feeling? Were you at unity with the being in some way?
um, I like I can only describe the joy that I felt was just like when my wife gave birth, and the joy that you feel when you
That's a
see
pretty big thing,
uh,
that you would
um,
compare it to that.
yeah, well, that's my honest feeling, and um, it, it was just so gentle. It was so peaceful. It was such people would be running for the hills at the sight of such a huge being. Um, but the reality, the love, and the feeling of calm and uh, bliss was just uh, euphoria. It was euphoric,
Well,
absolutely.
that's interesting. That's what Mike Emery keeps talking about. This euphoric feeling
Yeah,
when he's talking about fundamentals of existence and all that sort of stuff. Have you
yeah.
heard of Mike Emery?
I haven't.
He's
No,
talking
no.
about organic energy and the unity of consciousness, and that it's a euphoric feeling.
Yeah, yeah. Well, in previous episodes, I've met some of the more unsavory characters, and the feelings of intense fear, and being racked with fear, and uh, so to feel the other end of the scale has been a very unique and profound experience
So
to me.
when has that actually started? Because there are other people saying that we've detached from certain things. I don't want to say, but what I want to focus on your experience. Is there a major change that's happened?
Um,
I mean, when did it happen? If there is a major change,
right, right. Well, this state of euphoria or euphoric was from being in the presence of this other entity. I was able to feel the joy and the peacefulness and the calm and the nature of that being, um, and it was good and it was joyful. Um,
did he?
as a whole, and it's sort of like a day to day life, sort of like a feeling euphoric or anything along those lines. Well, those are few and far between. I feel good. I feel stronger mentally, spiritually, and physically than I ever have done my entire life. I'm 48 now, but I feel the best that I ever have done. A lot more sort of like assured in my mind of where I'm going, what I'm seeing, what I'm doing.
What do you feel assured that you now in this experience that you weren't assured before? What's made something happen that's more assuring this time than the last time? Or is there any doubts in your mind? Is that what you're saying? And now you feel more sure.
No, no. Well, of all pardon me, the various different experiences that I've had, I've been, as sure as I have been about anything else. It's just that when you get an experience so vivid, it's um, as vivid as yesterday was in this
Well, let's
reality.
go into that experience. I mean, you've how many drawings do you have of this? Can you get any more in the coloring and texture, the
I do,
size, any other features at all?
well, I those are the three pictures that I did
Yeah,
earlier on. I'll have a think and I'll see what I can come up with.
because I'm
Uh,
asking what made it more significant this time than you've had before. Are there any signatures or any little subtle details?
yeah, it's I understand where you're trying to go, and it's just the sheer fact that it connected from the physical reality to this happening in the sleep state. So I literally that evening I'd spoken with something that was there that was watching, and I'd put out the intention. Yes, I want to see with my own eyes. I want to, physically be there with them, and then literally hours later, the experience happened, and it was so clear, and it was right. I say right in front of me. I'm just amazed.
So I'm
Purely
asking,
amazed.
I'm drilling down here.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. If what made it so clear, what detailed, what aspects of your experience made that feeling it was so clear?
Right. Well, because not only was it what I was seeing, it was what I was feeling as well. I had those clear feelings and like as I say, a connection to this being. Apart from saying 17 foot 11 inches, which is very specific, it didn't say
So
anything
it wasn't
else.
17 foot and 10 and 15 16th of an inch.
No, no, but the thing is, obviously, although I do understand meters, that would be
No,
just
if it was
figure
meters,
eight.
I'd split it
Yeah,
down to the less. What gave you that precise size? What what experience, what sensation made you say it was that height rather than 7 foot or 15 foot? Or what makes you come
well,
up with those specific feelings of size?
yeah, yeah. Well, that was like literally. I stood next to it, and I was thinking in my mind, it's got to be 20, 25 foot, easy. And then of course the telepathic message came through saying to me, because I'd asked how tall it was, and then it came through as a telepathic message, 17 foot 11 inches.
So
Um,
it responded to your
yeah,
thing in
yeah,
imperial measurements.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think obviously you'd understood that I understood feet and inches better than I would, so
So he
me.
chose to communicate, or this being chose to communicate in what you were familiar with.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I say was wearing long black robes. Now, like I spoke about the previous experience with a slightly shorter entity, it wasn't wearing any clothes whatsoever, so I could see like hands and feet and things like that. Whereas this time, all I could see was this humongous head, these beautiful large black eyes. They're almost like puppy dog eyes. The way it was coming across, and it was the way it looked at me. It wanted me to look at it, and to see it. And then when it stood up, I mean, I could have screamed with joy. I really could have. And it moved in front of me, and it moved very, very, very slowly in front. And it had like the walking motion with the arms, but it was like it was floating.
Do you think it could have been some kind of projection?
Right.
Uh,
Um,
from a something in front of you. I mean, is I'm trying to get the. Is this broad daylight, pitch dark?
so this is
Just
roughly around about sort of like 6:30, 7 o'clock at night. So you've got a little bit of light left, but it's going dusky. And
so your experience matched what the actual weather was doing.
yes, yeah, yeah. So yeah, it just beyond what I've said, I can't quite elaborate more on that. It
So
was
the
I say, open.
the
It was an open space
experience.
like a park.
Sorry, the experience is obviously huge, but
Yes.
what I'm trying to ask is what parts of that experience made it such an experience?
Um,
Just a feeling, or what?
yeah, well, it was a mix of like not only just the sensation, the feeling, um, the awe and the amazement of it, but the visuals of it as well. It was very, very, very clear, as I say, and when it was crouched down behind this bush thing, its head was off to the side, and it stayed that way for quite a while because it was like kind of going, without saying, but it was like, "Psst, I'm over here, look at me." And I could see up close, it had got white skin, and there were ridges on its head as it went
I
up.
mean, were they
And
vertical ridges or horizontal
yeah, yeah,
ridges?
yeah. So it's so vertical. So let me just put the picture back up again. So that's obviously this is the bush, and that's how it was, how big it was. As I say, this bush is about sort of like 10 foot in height. So you get a real perspective of how big this thing was. But its head was an unusual shape. Um, like I say, it was fairly wide across, but it was like a rugby ball shape going backwards. So, and just the most gorgeous eyes I've looked into. Are just amazing. The whole
So, in
feeling.
comparison to the other ones, which were scary or gave you fear, this had a completely different feeling.
This is the complete opposite end of the scale. Totally the other end of the scale. Like I say, over that where you feel intense fear. This was just pure joy and love. Just amazing. Simply amazing.
Did they give you any things in your mind that you have started to think about later? Was it just other things that they gave you, or
No, and I was hoping for that. I was hoping I could get more information. Like I'll fill you in on what kind of happened. I got up after this experience, euphoric, just blown away. First thing in the morning, and I wandered through to the bathroom, and my eldest son is already up. And so I've been told previously that Harry is very important. I
who's
don't know.
Harry?
Harry is my eldest son,
Okay.
and
And when you say eldest, are you what age? I mean,
yeah, he's 13.
okay.
He's 13. I've got a younger son who's 9. And they haven't told me anything more than that. So what I started doing was I started documenting all these different things in like a diary, all the different experiences, to kind of the sensation I get and the feeling I get is to prepare him. I
Has
don't
he
know.
reported any experiences?
Well, we he hasn't said anything to me about because obviously I was visited as a child, and I got the sensation of these entities walking into my room. The room used to go freezing cold, and I used to put the duvet over my head, and I'd scrunch myself up into a fetal position, saying, "Please don't find me, please don't find me." And I had that, and I had a lot of sleep paralysis as a child and stuff like that. Um, he's not um, he's not discussed any of that as yet. I It's a
Have
fine
you
line.
any
It's a fine.
indications in his body language or any kind of
Um,
a knowing feeling from him that he may have had experienced?
yes, yeah, absolutely. It's a fine line because one thing I want him to grow up as a normal boy, um, and I don't want to scare him with too much of the stuff that I know. But he's also starting to become, growing to being a man, and so I'm starting to tell him information. But what happened in the morning? I'll go back to this. Well, first of all, I will quickly. You said, have there been any experiences? We saw a UFO together. We were camping in Wales by Barmouth, the other side of the estuary to Barmouth. and
Sorry,
we're
is
on
this without we're looking at the map? Is that South, Mid, or North Wales?
mid Wales, and it was a beautiful starry sky. We were camping, and we'd got a fire, and we were sat around the campfire, and there was, as I say, beautiful stars up in the sky, and my son saw it first, and he looked up. He said, Dad, what's that? And I could see a ball of light in the sky, and it was moving in our direction. And I looked at it and I thought, wow. And I first of all wanted to say, well, is that a satellite? Is it this, that, and the other? Um, and so I
Again,
just,
is that what sort of time period is that? I mean, we talked about before Elon Musk.
oh yeah.
Okay.
It's before that. So Harry was, let me see, he was probably about nine,
Yeah.
9 years old. So
I mean,
that's
obviously, with these Musk satellites and the other stuff, there's a
yeah.
hell of a lot more flying up there.
Yeah, so and I've seen it as well. I've seen it's really cool. I've seen it 3 times now. The string of lights. First time I saw it, I thought, well, what's going on? There was like about 12 equally spaced out stars moving across the sky, and then they got to a certain point and they just blinked out. Um, uh,
That's
Fabulous to see.
usually when it hits the true shadow of the Earth. So it's
Right.
where it is up there, it's getting sunlight, and then you just go into the.
Ah, right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for
But it
that.
may not be. It just they'd switched off or whatever.
Yeah, sure. Um, but I say we were camping, we were looking up this beautiful starry sky. We saw this ball of light in the sky, and it was moving towards us. And it seemed to be getting bigger. And so rather than freak my son out, I just looked at it and I said, "Oh, come on, why don't you come and join us? Come and sit down by the fire." And it went out. Just, it disappeared. And my son was like, wow, 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 and as equally I was as well. Um, and then there was a curious thing that happened the day after, and I was asleep in bed, back in bed at home, and I was woken up, and I opened my eyes, and above me was an entity uh, that had. Have you seen the film Wall-E? It's a Disney film, or E.T. the Extraterrestrial,
Yeah,
right?
well,
That kind of,
that's the 1978 one, I think.
yeah.
E.T.
So
I think.
yeah, the Steven
No, that's
Spielberg one.
Close Encounters. Yeah, I think
Um,
that's whatever.
anyway, this thing had a very, very, very long neck, kind of like E.T. in the movie thing has a long neck, and it had a head shape that was kind of like that, like an oval. And its neck was stood at the side of the bed, and its neck was peering over me, and its head was looking at me. And I'd opened my eyes and I thought, am I dreaming? I blinked a couple of times and it was still there, but it pulled back a couple of inches. And then I reached out to try and touch it and it disappeared. So
It
it was interesting.
disappeared, or did it shoot back?
It didn't know, it just literally disappeared. And I was waving my hand around to see if, say, it had got some sort of technology that's yeah, cloaking kind of technology, and that I could still slap it or whatever, or feel it. And no, it had completely gone. And that was the day after we saw this ball of light in the sky. Um, so that was just another interesting thing that has happened to me.
But that's very interesting in terms of the way it's all sort of connecting, or is it connecting with with the dots and things you're referring to?
Yeah,
Things are.
yeah.
Where do you think this is leading you?
I hope it's leading to more and more information that I can pass on to people. I haven't got a book to sell, or well, I have written a book actually. I just say
Oh, the
this.
old sort of thing. Well, I don't have a book, but it just so happens I've written a book. And here it is. Oh, but I haven't written
I,
it.
right. Now let me just tell you. I think this timeline has changed. So I think we're on a more positive road
When
now.
did that happen? Why do you think it, and what made you think it? What came up with that?
Right. I think it happened after the lockdowns. Um, the a couple of maybe 2022 or 23, and
Well, that's a couple of lockdowns.
yeah, I know. But during this, because of course I was getting used to information coming to me, okay, but being told telepathically different information, and
Tell
I
us more.
start I started um, channeling an entire story. Right, it's only a short story, but it's still a story.
Now,
Um,
why would you say channeling? What makes a difference to experiencing it?
right, okay, so it was coming to me telepathically. It was in my mind, and I couldn't shake it off. I was um, I was busy about normal days and stuff, and this thing kept on coming into my head, and it was about
What
um,
thing?
right, a post-apocalyptic world. The book that I've written, and I can't claim it was me because I've only written about 5% of it. I was given a little bit of writer's leeway to add a few of my own little touches, but 95% of it was this that was coming in, and it wouldn't stop. And so it was a post-apocalyptic world where the humanity is being decimated. Right, the human race has.
At which point can you say that was happening? Because I think things have changed in the last 18 months or so.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I think it's important if you could sort of say when those things happen, because it might reference with what other people are saying about how things have
yeah,
changed.
yeah. The date is 2033. And basically, the human race has been decimated, and the reptilians show themselves. But what they do is they come here to try and um, quote save humanity, right? And what they do is they install a global artificial intelligence called Mother. And Mother is in charge of absolutely everything. She's judge and jury, and people's homes. It's like mega cities, and everybody is within their own home, which is identical, and it's got its locked doors, and nobody's allowed out. And within this is like the families are split apart to keep everybody compliant. So the
Well, I
men,
mean, we are talking quite seriously about that. I mean, that's what
yeah,
their plans are in 2020, this era now, 2024. So, I mean, that seems that it's from a future time. Or has
yeah.
that changed now?
I've got a sensation that things have changed, that we're on a better timeline. But
When? When
I
and
will
what?
tell you.
When did that happen? What made you feel that? What was the decision that made you say that's happened?
Yeah, it was. I wrote the date down in the book, but it was around about it was the lockdown time. So the early 2020s,
That's the
and
first lockdown.
yeah, and but so basically the families are split up. The elderly are looking after the small children in the homes, and every single room has like its own spyware, so cameras and stuff like that. Um, there, everybody has to uh, take. basically a tablet every single day,
Yeah.
and if they don't take these tablets, then they get given a certain set of warnings, and they'll get credits removed, right? And they'll get put on the list of sort of like, okay, this is a bad person, all this sort of stuff, right?
This is
They'll get,
very, very like the Fabian agenda, which is,
yeah. Well,
the
I'll carry on
Brave New
telling you
World.
openly. Yeah, it's fine. So they the parents go, or the young parents, they go off to work, and they're never allowed to see their children again. And as I say, they're kept so complicit, that balance. The elderly are looking after the young. There is there's like unit, like you have those units that go around your grass, so like a robotic thing, and they'll
Yes.
mow the
Yeah.
lawn. Get those going round the house. I forget what the title was given to them, but they're like continually cleaning and continually spraying into the atmosphere. Quite what they're doing, I don't know. But what happens is that the people within the homes, their brains are getting all foggy and they can't think straight. And the
This is what's
hero,
happening now.
yeah, the hero of the story is the granddad, and he's just getting vague recollections of when he was younger and stuff like that, but he can't fully reach back and remember them. And in every home is a like a treadmill, and so what people have to do is they have to meet their daily quota of going on this treadmill and powering the grid. And so this is what they do, and they have like these competitions. And if you get the top of the table, then you are allowed an extra 5 minutes outside and things like that. And if you don't come back to your room at a certain time, then you are fined credits and all this sort of stuff. If you do it too many times, then you're taken to a re-education centre. And what happens is people don't tend to come back from that, or they come back and they're not the same person. They're like a cloned version. So what
Now,
happens in the
this is
story?
your experience. This is what you've had.
Yeah, and it just wouldn't go. I don't just continue. I'm a family man. I love spending time with my family, and this was coming to me on Father's Day of all things. And I was writing down like excuse the pun, but like a man possessed, and maybe I was. I was just couldn't stop writing this story. Um, and what happens? This I've called it uh, 2033 sustainable, instead of development, development. So development, right? So it's 2033 sustainable development, and it's available on Amazon. And
This is actually available on Amazon.
yeah. So I put it up there, and I've set it so then it's for the smallest amount that I can possibly get, right? So it's for pennies for me. So it doesn't cost much to get it. It's only a short story. But I had a look on my emails, and I'd made the other day there was a message through that I'd made 8 pence or something
Oh,
like
you're
that. So
splashing. You're
so
reveling in it.
so the information is important, and I'm trying to give it for free the best I can. So I'm doing that now, you know. But basically, it goes a lot more insidious. What happens? The granddad, he's going on this treadmill, and he's trying to win extra time for the boy that he's with. He's got a little lad, and what happens is that according to Mother, the AI, um, all names are banned. You know, it's illegal to use your names, and it gives everybody a coded name, so a set of letters and numbers. So you have to use those, and they're given their
Are
separate.
these English letters, English alphabet, or
Yes,
Western,
yes,
what we call, yeah.
yeah. And so like TR3759, that kind of thing, right? And and so what happens? This granddad, he bangs his head after going sprinting, and he can't possibly sprint anymore. He falls off this treadmill, bangs his head, and he starts to get his memory back. So there's the foundation of the rebellion beginning inside of him, seeing how atrocious it is to be a slave to AI. And another thing that you have to do on a daily basis is pledge allegiance to Satan. And it goes along the lines of saying that they owns the north, the south, the east, the west, and all the points in between. And yeah, it's pledging allegiance to Satan. And the emblem that comes up, that was like burnt in my mind, was like these pair of wings rising up to the sky, and they're in flames, and in the middle is a trident. And this is what is projected on the screens to the people. You have every person has like a wall monitor, so it's not an actual television, it's like a projection, and it projects onto the wall, and the fanfare goes off, and this symbol is there of these wings reaching up to the sky in flames, with this trident. And so the granddad starts to rebel more, and he doesn't take his tablets. He's telling the boy not to take his. And this mother AI is I mean, it's quite psychopathic, really. Not
What
only
makes you
just,
think that? What's key to what
well,
makes that happen for you saying it's
well,
psychopathic?
the way that as the story progresses, the granddad gets into so much trouble that he's listed for re-education. And at this time, what tends to happen is they have an event where there's this, the music will come on, and people are trying to go on this treadmill, and so the music is designed to drown out what is happening in the background. And what happens is the door opens, and three men in black are stood there.
Yes.
And yeah, so basically, um, they'll drag people off and take them, excuse me,
To the
but
underground
just,
chambers or
yeah,
whatever.
but just sort of like, um, what happens is once the granddad gets dragged off, um, the AI changes its tack, and it begins. It's starting authoritarian, speaking to the boy. You know, GK. What was it now? TK421, I think his number was. TK421, reply, respond, all this sort of stuff, and then it goes, Tommy, I'm going to supply a present for you. And what it is that as the granddad comes off the travelator, the thing, he steps on this cleaning unit, and this cleaning unit is all this boy's got. It's like kind of like a pet
Yeah.
almost, and he steps on it and destroys it. So he's broken it. Obviously, this
Did he
boy's
intentionally step on it or did
no,
it with an accident?
no. He just
He didn't
literally
sort of stand up on it and smash it.
no, passing out. He falls on the thing, breaks that, but smacks his head at the same time. And then of course she says that I've got a present for you, and the door opens up, and a brand new unit comes in. So it's only a cleaning unit, but obviously that meant a lot to the boy. So it's very manipulative in the way that it's responding and thinking.
But it's
See, so,
after the boy. It's after your son. Is that right?
yeah. So
Is this your only son? Sorry, you had two.
no. Well, I've got two sons. The character in the book is like a grandfather, and he had a daughter, and his daughter was taken along with the son, sorry, the son-in-law, and he was then left with the child to look after the child in this enclosed virucidal room, protected. Everything was just sort of like kept clean perfectly all the
Yeah.
time. So he decides that basically he understands that it's the reptilians that are at the cause of it all. So he comes up with this brilliant plan when he's called for re-education, and he immediately calls for parley, and the computer run. There's a bit of a pause because it's trying to compute what's this. I've never had anybody defy me before, and so he goes back to the old pirate thing. Calling parley is where you want to speak with the captain,
Yes.
and so you're saying he wants to speak with the reptilians. And so he stood in this room, in the virucidal room with the boy. Then, like that, all of a sudden, he's in a very dimly lit room, like candlelight. And it's like he's just surrounded by this candlelight, but the rest is pitch black.
Yes.
And all he can hear is this deep rumble of a noise, which is like a growl. Like I've mentioned before, exactly with the reptilians, it's like an alligator mating call. If you have a look on YouTube,
Right.
that's exactly it, or like a lion or
Well,
a
they're
panther.
trying to, call.
Yeah, that real rumble of a roar. Um, and it's the reptilian begins speaking and saying why have you summoned me and all this sort of stuff, and he starts to tell information about the history of it divulges more information to the man as they're talking, and it's kind of like a mouse with its a cat with its prey, and it's almost like feeding off the fear of the old man, but he's still curious about how he could be so uh, what's the word now? So
Naive? No.
standing up for himself,
Yeah.
in his presence,
He
he's just
was
never experienced
defying them.
it. Yes, exactly. And which made him curious and almost a bit of respect for him for doing that. And so the reptilian starts talking about the history of humanity, where they were chasing the Lyrans that
Okay.
came to Mars and first inhabited there, and they said they settled on Earth first. And they were saying that they were here for years and they had their cattle. And the old man was like, "What's he talking about, cattle and stuff like that?" And he realizes that they were talking about the dinosaurs, and saying that they would use some of the more vicious ones as a form of an attack force. If they were
Yeah.
going to a planet, they would drop a load of an whole army of T-Rexes to go in and just wipe everything out. So there was a lot of that realization, and then it's sort of like how their bloodline has sort of like endured through humanity, through to sort of like Babylonia, to Khazaria, through to, going on through the times, and it's still here today. So obviously I've literally told the entire story here, but it's yeah, the man gets finally, after the long conversation, I won't divulge absolutely everything, but after all the information that the reptilian gives him, um, the man is then there back in the room, stood next to the boy. He's been transported again, and the doors open, and these three men in black come in, and they try to drag him off, but he shows them why he was a boxing champion when he was a lot younger, and he fights back and clocks one of these men in black, and his glasses come off. And there's another one that comes and attacks him, and he gives him a headbutt. And
What about the glasses? What about the eyes?
fights off. Well, the boy is obviously there, just stunned, and the man in black looks at him, and he's got reptilian eyes, and is human looking, but he's got reptilian eyes, and this old man fights for his life. He knocks them all to the ground, well, he's knocked one, his glasses come off, he goes to the next one, knocks him, and then another one bear hugs him and is like crushing him with an insane amount of
Yeah.
strength. And he sort of like knocks his head back and headbutts him and knocks him to the floor. He sees the door that's open and he turns to the boy to say, "Come on, let's get out." But the other MIB has got hold of him, and then the other two get to their feet, knock him to the ground, knock him out, and he's taken to be re-educated. Finally, this boy speaks to mother, and he's told that he's allowed an extra 5 minutes, and he can spend time with real children.
Yeah.
And so he's just overjoyed. He's like, "What? There are real children here." And so he's allowed to go off, but he's got to come back at a certain time, which he does. And it's later on in the evening, and it's dark in the room, and the door opens, and there's a familiar figure standing in the doorway, and it's his granddad. So he runs over and he gives him the biggest hug and all this sort of stuff. And during the course of the whole thing with the awakening, the granddad's saying how much he hates the treadmills, and he hates all of that because he sees it for what it is. And as he's stood there, he sits down and he's very quiet, and the boy says, "What's wrong?" And he says, "Is it time to go on the treadmill yet?" So, and that's the end of the story. And unfortunately, he's been cloned or reconditioned to be submissive.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was the story that I just couldn't. I've never written a story before, but I just couldn't get it out of my head. I couldn't.
And when did you get this dream, or what happened that this came
Well,
into your mind?
No, this was daytime, broad daylight.
Yeah.
And I was walking around, and I started getting this download of like this story, and I was, the story's got to go like this, and it's this granddad and this boy, and your planet's been decimated, and this is the time, 2033, and it wouldn't go, and I was trying to just get on with my daily stuff and think about stuff, and all I could think about was this story. It was just all.
What makes this just another dream relative to actual?
Yeah, well, this wasn't a dream. This was not a dream. This was during my waking hours. I was wide awake. This was 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
And when was this? Was this 2021?
Yeah, 2021. Yeah. I think 2021.
At what month?
Let me see. I've got the book nearby. I've got it written down. If we talk again, Miles, I'll give you or I'll send you the information afterwards, so you can maybe, with the power of editing, you'll put the
power of editing.
Yeah, and put the date up exactly as.
I'm just seeing if it can compare with other events which seems to be happening, and seeing if there's a possibility of drawing some kind of conclusions from that.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
let's focus on your data and make sure it's just right by you.
Yeah. Well, obviously the whole lockdown was going on. The injections were happening, and I had the strong feeling that was going to be a major player within the reduction of the human race. And then I've also got a very strong feeling of a world war.
Well, we're sort of so close to that now.
Yeah, I know. But I got to keep on looking on the positive side.
Yes.
I do sincerely, strongly feel somehow we've changed from that timeline, changed from that story.
So you really, really feel then? Yeah. You really feel.
So as an author, I'm not really selling the book, am I? But I really, honestly believe that. I think I don't think it's going to be easy by any stretch.
What are the difficulties that you see with this process?
Well, I think that with people, this energy, this way, what I was led to believe was there was an energetic tsunami that was going to sweep across the planet and wake everybody from this illusion, this veil, and so and that's inescapable. And everybody is at different levels of being awake and aware of different things that are going on. So, well, hold on, well, that's not right, and stuff. And the more you go into the rabbit hole, the more that you sort of like see that more that isn't right. So, I've been awake or aware for a good sort of like 20 odd years,
Did
you know.
the ETs do that for you, or were you just simply uh, uh, it's you yourself who's become awake? Is something external caused that awakeness? Is that to do with what your parents are and all that?
Yeah. It's
In other words, why have you not responded to the media pressure? Why have you thinking individually like this, differently?
yeah. Well, because yeah, I've I've well, let's just put me in a padded cell and
No, no,
stick
forget about all that. I mean, something
on a white
may have.
jacket.
For what
No,
made
no,
this
no,
happen?
no,
Yeah.
no. I'm just joking. I'm joking because I've never felt like I belong here. I've never felt like I'm really from here. I've always had an affiliation with the stars. I've always looked to them and felt, like I want to go home.
Well, you
And
are here. What are you? Are you on a mission of some kind, or have you been prepared for this?
yeah, I think so. I think so. Um, I, it's like the old analogy. You don't feed a baby steak. Right, with a baby, you have to start off with baby food, and you start off and you gradually build it up and up and up until you get to the steak. It's been very much like this, and so a lot of the information that I've learned as I've experienced things over the years since I've as far as I can remember, obviously being visited and uh, all this sort of stuff. Um, and these experiences have grown more and more as I've got older. So they're introducing more and more information to me. So and what I find incredibly um, strange is the fact that I've tried to speak to a lot of people to sort of get this information out, give it freely. I give it completely freely. I'll talk to anybody. But the amount of people that I've tried to get in touch with, it's a shut door.
Now,
Um,
which people have you been on? Which organisations? Because this is
oh,
important.
different stuff like I initially tried to speak with there was Simon Parks, is it?
Yeah,
Because I
Simon
had a,
Parks. Yeah, he came
yeah,
along in 2011.
yeah. So I'd heard that he'd um, had interactions with mantid beings, and
Yes, that's
and
his background. Yeah,
yeah, and so
Manted and
obviously
reptilian, and his
yeah,
mother and father were in various agencies.
right. So I reached out to him, and because I'd had an experience with the mantid head that had just appeared after the shared consciousness experience that I'd had. I'd had experiences with a reptilian that scared myself, my wife, and our dog. Absolutely petrified our poor dog. Um, and so I wanted to reach out to speak to people that were the same. So I reached out to him, and we were trying to connect up like Zoom meetings and stuff, and it was like there was a block. It was just not happening. We
Well,
weren't
that certainly
connecting.
does happen.
Yeah. It wasn't. It was being stopped all the while, and in the end, just gave up trying to get in touch. I tried to get in touch with Kerry
Yeah,
Cassidy.
Kerry Cassidy.
Yeah, I tried. I didn't hear anything from Kerry. I've tried. Oh, there's been loads of people over in America. They have different shows, kind of like obviously doing an interview and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And just it's a shut door, as in I'm not getting through. I'm not, maybe my emails are getting blocked or quite. I don't.
I'm certainly would consider it abhorrent that any listing post of some kind would be intercepting your emails, maybe
Yeah, yeah,
rewriting them for you.
yeah, yeah. Well, like previously, I've given an email out, and so yeah, I'd be more than happy to talk to anybody. We haven't even scratched the surface on the different stuff that I wanted to talk about tonight.
Well, get on with it then. Or do
Right,
we want to
okay.
have a slight pause?
No, well, no, it's all right. We'll carry on. Let me just
Well, you get going. I'm going to put the kettle on.
yeah, you do that. Well, I
So
tell you what.
this is the whole point. Let's get on with what you need to say.
All right, okay, not a problem. Not a problem. Right. Well, there was an astral experience that I had that was incredibly vivid, and I was on an island somewhere. Right, it was like a tropical island, palm trees, turquoise ocean, and beautiful white sand. But I was there with a group of people, which included my brother, and we were walking along just exploring the island, and we were walking along down by there was a path that went down to by the beach. It was quite a rocky area, and there was a structure, wooden structure, and there was an upright and a horizontal that kind of attached to a a dilapidated building right next to the sea. And I said to my brother, I said, we should climb up that and dive in the water. And so we went over, but it was quite choppy, as in windy, and the waves were sort of like really choppy, blowing along like that. Could see a few sort of like rocks protruding out of the water, and we thought, it's not really a good idea. It's not safe. None of the people with us went in the water either. Um, and I then got a closer look into the water, and I could see a turtle. Now, as I was just looking at this turtle, this strange thing grabbed it. Now, it was either had a shaved head or it was bald. Um, it had like two arms, but it had gills, and it had a bit of a body mutated, with no legs, and it was like an orangey red skin tone, sharp teeth, and it bit onto the turtle's fin, and this turtle is desperately trying to get away, and this thing's got really bitten down on it, and this turtle manages to get a bit away, but this thing grabs it again, and it's shaking it like that. um and I turned to my brother and I said, I want to help. I was wanted to sort of like jump in and help the turtle and give this thing, whatever it was, a boot. But two men jump into the water, and they're not with the rest of us, and they grab this thing, whatever it is. It's like the island of Dr. Moreau, it's like a horrible mutated experiment, right? That's part human, part fish, part whatever. It's just gross. And they pick it up and they put it into like a cage that reminded me a lot of a lobster pot. So they did that. And if that wasn't strange enough, we did, we decided then to go around more of the island, and there was an area where you could. It was all paved, so you could go on these bikes. now these bikes were all fold-up ones, and somebody showed me how to use the one that I was using, and it was kind of like click, 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 and put it into place. But it was so then the handlebars were under the bum, and you pedal out in front of you, and it was a bit odd, and it took a bit of getting used to, but I got used to it. I was able to get around this island. Now we got down to where there were just a few shops. It wasn't many, but this one shop was like a catalog surplus. So it was selling stuff that was like branded stuff, but it was selling it off really, really cheap. And all of a sudden, the heavens opened and it started to rain. And it didn't just rain, it was absolutely bucketing it down with really big drops of rain. So within seconds, you were just soaked, absolutely soaked to the skin. So we then tried to shelter within the doorway of these shops, and the door was open to this catalog surplus shop, and I went inside, and somebody said, "Oh no, sorry, sir, it's not open yet." So I then was like, oh, "Well, haven't you seen it outside?" So I had to walk out and literally stand in the doorway, and it was only sort of like another 5 minutes, and then the shop opened. So we all went inside. Now, the thing with this shop, it was just a front, right? And it was like it was a front for an Illuminati kind of satanic operation going on. And what was happening in the background was, I'll just give a warning because this isn't particularly nice. They would get people to go into a specific room, and this room would then chop their legs off these people, right? And then if the people survived, they would say, "Oh, they were chosen," right? They weren't chosen. It was just like a sick game because they got off on. It was like a perverted. They enjoyed their pain and their misery and stuff like that. They were trying to say they were chosen. So whether they then were experimenting on these people, I kind of get the idea that the thing at the start was one of these poor unfortunate people. And then further back, there was another room, and it was like a changing room, like just normal a gym or something like that. But you've got your men and your women on the left side of the same left and right side of the same room, and there was a small divider in between that was no more than 6 foot high. There were mirrors on the walls. You could each see what everybody was doing, when they were naked and stuff like that. You could see everything. And then at the end of this experience, I got a name, and I was like, when I woke up, don't forget this name. Don't forget it. It's really important. The name was unusual. It was Plantagenet. Plantagenet. And the people that were running it were sick. They were sick beyond belief, and they just really got off on the. And I'm getting annoyed by it because they were getting off on the pain and the misery of these people. It was so that was one of the experiences. Now there's been a lot in the news going on about the royals family and all this sort of stuff, or the Saxe-Coburg Gothers, as they really are called. And I've had several different experiences where there's been royals involved. And one of them, this was a good many years ago now, and this was where I think we were on the really bad timeline. And we were going straight towards this whole thing of a new world order, and almost like a Hunger Games society. And that's exactly what I experienced. And I was with a group of men, and it was the middle of the night, sort of like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, everywhere was dark. There was a point of light behind me, but it was only a fake light, so like a halogen way up high, casting light over the ground, and in front of me was a field, and there was behind me about a 4 foot wall, and there were other buildings there. There were men in high vis bibs, so they were like your referees, and they held handfuls of swords, stabbing weapons, other implements of just axes, torture, you name it. And they just chucked them about on the field. Okay. And then these guys were there, and each one of these guards, these referees guys, had a gun. So, there was no chance that they were going to get stabbed or attacked, because they'd just shoot the person dead. And so, was it a fanfare? It was either a whistle was blown or it's been a while since I recorded this, so it was either like a tannoy to start, or a whistle. Doesn't really matter either way. And then these men were just sprinting onto this field, and I was just stood there in absolute disbelief and horror at what I was witnessing. And these men were grabbing all the different swords and fighting and killing each other. And what I noticed was there was a man. He had blonde hair, glasses, round glasses, and he was just hysterical. He was running past me. I could see that he'd wet himself, and two men were chasing after him with weapons to kill him. And all of a sudden, I got this voice in my head to say, "Go, like run." So I dived over this 4 foot wall, and I was sort of like looking around, trying to find something, because it was still fairly dark, but you did have this halogen light, and somebody tackled me, and they got on top of me, and they tried to stab me in the stomach, but because I was wearing whatever clothing I was wearing, it didn't get right the way through, and I was reaching about trying to feel for a weapon, and I grabbed something that was like it's a weapon, and it's like a hook. It's a sword, but it's a hook. I think scimitar. I think it's a scimitar, and I slashed at his stomach, right? And so I was able to get up and get away. And then further on, I'd picked up a different weapon, and it was like a very long spike, and I was able to spike somebody else that tried to attack me. Now, that occurred. Then I was taken to a venue, and it was a big black tie event, and I get the feeling it was Masonic, and there were about 2,000 people there. Very big event, and I don't know whether I was there because for 21 years I was a professional singer, so whether I was there to sing or whether I was there to be honored for surviving this Hunger Games type reality thing, I'm not sure on that one, but I was there, and the people around me had upper class English accents, and they were all chatting away. You can imagine a big room, 2,000 people, a massive cacophony of noise and voices. I couldn't make out what different people were saying, but that was it. I could distinguish that they had upper class English accents. All of a sudden, the fanfare goes up, and the announcement's made, and it's royalty that's coming in, and it is, of all the different ones, it's Princess Anne, right? And she comes in, and she is a third of her height in this reality, right? She's got a big bulbous head, a very small body, and she's a third of her height. It looked absolutely ridiculous. And I was thinking, well, afterwards I was thinking, well, is this what they truly look like? Um so anyway, I'm there. I then go into like the back area. By the way, she's got like her little minion that's with her, a little servant doing stuff and whatnot. Um I then go into the back area, which I don't know whether it's for staff or whether it was a bar or quite what it was. I'm sat there, and it's not long before Princess Anne comes in, and she's got a face of thunder, and she's bitching about everything under the sun. Her little minions trotting behind her, and I just remember just trying not to laugh at how ridiculous she looked. Um, so very short, third of the height with this humongous head. But that was all I got from that experience. Um, I've had other ones where the Queen has been president and stuff like that. But the stuff that I wanted to go over here was also various different things. Like there's a time travel element to me going out of body and astral traveling, or I'm body hopping, like I'm hopping through time and space, um, and all of this, and I have no control of where I'm going or what I'm doing. But once I'm there, I can have good recall of what's happened. And this one was, I live in Shropshire, and I remember being in this astral experience, being up somewhere high, but I recognised the surroundings. And it wasn't long before I realised that was Lillishall Hill. And now next to where I live, there's only sort of like two really high points. One is Lillishall Hill, and the other is the Wrekin. Now, I've been up Lillishall Hill since I was a young boy. My dad always used to take me up there. He used to drop pennies on the floor without me looking and say that there was an old man with a hole in his pocket, and I used to go round searching for these pennies. So it's a beautifully, wonderfully lovely place that I'm very fond of. So I recognised it straight away, even from the landscape and stuff like that. And over the hill walks this impeccably dressed man, but he's in old school clothing. Now, when I say old school, I mean old school. I'm talking almost like Victorian-esque. But he's the way he's holding himself, and you're just looking at him, he's well-to-do. Not just by the way he's dressed, in the impeccably dressed, smart dressed, but uh, he just had that air of being, top brass. And I walked up and I recognized him. I've never met him, but I recognized him. Right, and as he's walking over, I look at him and I say, I pull out like a little journal out of my pocket, and I say to him, I recognise this handsome chap from the book. And he just smiles. He's obviously the first time I've met him, but he appreciates the compliment, and he can see within this pamphlet, these pages, is his picture. And so anyway, we get to talking, and it's a lovely sunny summer's day, and he's having a look through the book, and it's kind of like the book has got maps in, and it's like maps of the area. It's kind of like an orienteering map, something like that. And there's little markers on the maps, and one particular point has a shield on it. There's no defining things other than it's just got a shield. Okay, so there was like a building and whatnot, and there was this shield. And this man, he goes on to say that he'd had to climb up on a roof to hide behind the chimney at this point, and he pointed to the shield. And it was kind of like, oh, you know, a really wonderful anecdote, because it was almost like being with somebody who's your idol kind of thing. And he turns over the next page, and one of the pages is really folded over and crumpled and stuff. And he was most upset, and he was like, what's happened here? And I was like mortified. I was like, I haven't got a clue how that happened. He seemed quite stern with the fact that a book or pages rather should be left in such a state. And so anyway, we parted, said goodbye, and as I'd left that experience, I got a name, and that name was Sir Richard, and it was like a double-barreled one. Sir Richard Fiel, Fiel, Leaves or Leveson, right? So Sir Richard Fiel Leveson, and I then obviously was back in this reality, and I searched up the name, and sure enough, in 1600 there was a Sir Richard Leveson who was an admiral, and he's got facial hair, and he'd bought over 20,000 acres of land in the area, and he lived at Lilleshall Lodge. You know, and so it was sort of like the area that he'd bought was Shropshire and Staffordshire and stuff like that. And I just couldn't believe it. I was gobsmacked, you know. So have I literally travelled in time back to this? But there it was in plain day. So Sir Richard Leveson. And what was interesting, I had a little look back, and his father was quite unhinged through debt, right? And his father became a necromancer, and in Lilleshall he was growing poisonous plants. It's fabulous to learn about this. So I'd gone there, I'd met this guy, and there we go. So there is a monument on the top of Lilleshall Hill, and basically there's a plaque at the very back of it, and I just remember it from as being a boy, and it was the Duke of somewhere quite a way away from here, the Duke of wherever it was. And the monument was erected in honor of this Duke, because what he did was he gave homes to the people, his tenants and stuff like that. He gave them the homes, and so they erected this big monument. So I went walking the dog tonight because I knew I was going to be talking about this. I had a look at this plaque, and sure enough, it does say it's the Duke of whatever, but his name is George Leveson, Leveson. So he's obviously some relation to this Sir Richard, who's an admiral. So that was just another one of my things. There's another one astral experience, where I was somewhere warm. It was I'd gone to this building, and there were these huge gates. Now I had a little companion. This is the first time this has ever happened.
What sort of time is this? What sort of time period is this? Between the first one and this one?
Well, I've picked some experiences, astral experiences that I've had over the years, over the course of my life, and
Okay.
and so these are while I'm in my 30s.
Just keep on rocking.
Yeah, no worries. So I'd got to this building. I was with a companion. I've never had that before, so that's why it's unusual. This companion is a small boy. He's about 9 years old. He's quite chunky and heavy set. He's something like either Puerto Rican or Mexican, something like that, and he will not stop talking. He's talking incessantly. He just doesn't stop. It's like he doesn't stop to breathe. And I put up with him, but I don't. I can hear him, but I try and tune out. But he's with me for whatever reason. And nice enough lad. Um, and so we're at these huge 10-foot high wall with big gates, right? And the walls are white stone, and it's a big thick wooden gates, about sort of like maybe 3 inches thick. We walk in, and there's a many-tiered garden, and these are very, very long strips. So the strips themselves, I would say, I don't know, about 30 foot as far as the garden's concerned, and it goes along, and the grass is a lush green, and each blade of grass is really quite wide. There are flowers that I recognize, and they are tulips and roses. And the flowers themselves in the garden are bunched together, kind of like you'd see if you go to a florist and they've got the bunches in the buckets, kind of thing. It was kind of like that, bunches of flowers, but planted in the garden. And so you get a tier, so you'd walk along 30 foot, and then at the end of the tier, there's a set of steps that would go down. So, 8 to 10 steps, and then you're on another tier, and that's another strip of 30 foot or so. And you walk along that, and you go down again. And so you go down several tiers, and then you come to an expanse. And at this expanse, there were pools, and these were various different level pools, and they were quite high walled around them, like almost like, say, the height of a jacuzzi. And the water in the pool was not clear, so it was like when you have a paracetamol and you drop the tablet in, and it fizzes and goes all a grey misty colour. It was just like that. Now, there was a gardener who came up, and this gardener was around about sort of like 5'10". He had curly hair. He kind of looked like Bear Grylls in a wig. He had these, what are they called now? Dungarees on, and he had like boots on, and he had a tan. He sort of olive skin, and he spoke with an American accent that was it was crossed with Italian. It reminded me a lot of the way Sylvester Stallone speaks. So whatever region he was from in America, then that was it. I think New York. I'm not entirely sure, but it wasn't so broad as Stallone. And so he welcomed us and all this sort of stuff. And I was then to get into the water. So, I took my clothes off, and I noticed there were other males there, some young boys, but males, and different ages. And they were various different ones sat in the water, about sort of like 20 or so of them. Nobody was talking. And I walked into the water, and as I got in the water, I thought, it's really quite tepid, quite cold. So I was trying to splash the water up over my shoulders and trying to acclimatize. And then I started to notice none of the people, the men in the water, were moving at all. And I sat down in the water. Nobody was speaking. I just thought it was all really odd. My little companion was sat off to the side, just non-stop. So I was trying to relax in the water, and I was looking around. I was thinking, something isn't right. This is really odd. And as I looked at the different men, I could see they were like staring into space, and their bottom jaw was like protruding in front, and they were like they weren't even there. And then I started to feel something strange was in the water. And this was like disconnecting whatever my consciousness from my body. And I couldn't move. And I was trying to speak to my companion, and I was speaking through gritted teeth, and I was like, get me out of here. I've got to leave. And my little companion was just completely oblivious. Oh, yeah, I'll come with you. It's absolutely fine. Blah, 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 blah. All right. And so he kept on chatting. And what I did, bless his little cotton socks, is I just focused on his voice, concentrated as hard as I could. And I just, everything that I'd got in me, I managed to just really pull myself out of that water. And it was a real struggle. And I got out of the water, and I thought, I've got to leave. I've got to just get out of here. So I didn't even bother getting dressed. I just headed for the gate. And this gardener is absolutely furious, right? And he comes racing over. First, he's trying to get me back into the water. I'm not having any of it. And he knows that he can't physically drag me in, right? And he starts shouting, get back in that water. And I'm no, there's nothing you can do, or any of the powers that be, that can get me into that water again, right? And he starts to go mad, and he grabs. Oh, first of all, the little boy I'm with, he's bored, and he picks one of the tulips up out the flower bed, and this gardener slaps the flower out of his hand. He then picks up, rips up a rose bush. He's got gloves on, so it's doesn't hurt him. He says, "You try and leave, and I'll lash you with it." So I just turn my back on him, and next thing, whack! I can feel all the thorns going into my back. Right, and I just turn round and I swipe it out of his hands, and I just glare at him, and he's disgusted with me, and he says, and I turn around to go. I just leave, and my back must be absolutely bleeding. And he shouts at me, and he says, "Don't tell me the Illuminati is dead," which is just bizarre, but that's what he said. And I turned around and I said, "The Illuminati is dead, and so is your brainwashing operation." And I just turn and I leave. And that's just another experience. My dog is just barking to get out, so I've got to just let the dog out, and I've got to head off to the toilet. So
do that. Yeah, I'm going to break the recording so we have a little bit of a break on the file. Okay.
Yeah, that's great. That's great stuff. Yeah. So.
Grab your headphones.
So
I'll wrap myself around here.
No, you're fine. So,
well, this has been an extremely exciting set of experiences, especially that one in the pool or water, whatever it was. Well, what do you feel that was?
Your guess is as good as mine. It was.
I mean, it's very scary.
I think in some way it was a way of getting rid of people that were maybe close or affiliated or something like that, to just permanently silence them. When I woke,
I mean, the gardener seems like a very weird, but it's.
Oh yeah. And when I woke up, I had an old song that I hadn't heard for years, and it was like bang in my mind, and I couldn't get it out of my head. And it was Iron Maiden's "Hallowed Be Thy Name."
Whoa!
Now, I'm sure there is some link to that.
Is that actually the Lord's Prayer? Is that that the Lord's Prayer?
No.
Hallowed Be Thy Name is.
It's Iron Maiden, and it is it goes on about him waiting in a cold cell as the bells begin to chime, reflecting on his past life, and it doesn't have much time. So I was there thinking from that line, is that a signal to me? You know, you haven't got much time. That was what was there. So I believe the clues connected with that. But it was yeah, I don't want to go back there either. I've been to plenty of places like this, Miles. I just don't ever want to go back. Right now, I've got another experience. Have we got
Yeah,
time to
yeah,
carry on?
yeah. Go ahead.
Right. Okay. So, when I was first, experiencing all this sort of stuff, I was trying to reach out to different people, like I said, and try and find people that had similar experiences in the area,
And
that I
how were
might
you
know.
doing that? What was
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, I had a look online. And I found there was, I told you about this big um, place called the Wrekin that's nearby, bit of high
Explain
ground.
that, and for those who
Yeah,
haven't, just give a little bit of a summary of what you mean by that.
yeah. The Wrekin is well, there's the area is called Telford and Wrekin, but the Wrekin itself is like somewhere between a mountain and it's smaller than a mountain, but it's those tweeny things. It's quite high up. There's a big television mast on the top of it and whatnot. So there's an old folklore that says basically a giant came along with his shovel and he tripped and he dropped the mound of earth there because Shropshire's pretty flat other than the
I thought that's
Wrekin.
how the Isle of Man was made and so forth.
Yeah. Well,
Some giant dropped a bit of whatever.
yeah, it's an old tale.
Yeah.
But anyway, I had a look online, and there was an account I saw by three girls who were abducted near the Wrekin, and there was an very old picture, and I thought,
Just as a matter of interest, where did you see these stories if for other people to look them up?
right, okay, it was basically I'd put it into a search engine about sort of like UFO Telford and Wrekin, for stuff like that. Now, basically, I've even got the date of it now because as I befriended one of the women called Valerie, and bless her, God rest her soul, she's no longer with us. Which is why I'm going to tell her story. And she was abducted on the road from Shrewsbury to Wellington, which is right by the Wrekin. And this was on July the 16th, 1981. Now, July the 16th is a day before my birthday. So when we met and she asked me, when were you born? I said July 17th. She was like, when? You sure? Yeah, so it was a very close affinity. And so anyway, I'd seen this online, this story, and it transpires that there have been three abductions in the same area. The one was Valerie and her two friends. The other one was a man who literally lost his marbles over it and had to move away. He just couldn't cope with it. I don't know what his story was, but I'll tell you Valerie's story. And she was coming back in a car with Rosie and Viv, her other two friends, and they'd been out for this night out in Shrewsbury. So they were getting back the early hours of the morning, and they came to this point. And as it transpires as well, I now go back to that area on a monthly basis doing cleaning windows. So I am literally on the same road that she was abducted every single month. So I'm in the exact same
Are
area.
you trying to get abducted yourself?
Yeah.
If we
well,
keep going here,
well,
we'll have the same experience.
yeah. Well. I mean, we did at a later point. Valerie and I did go back on the same date, July the 16th, and we did like a vigil. We did see something up in the sky. I did get an overwhelming sensation of we're in danger, and so I put my foot down, got out of there. but that was ahead of that. So Valerie's experience was they were driving along early hours of the morning. They see this bright ball of light off to the side. Now, as you're driving along that section of road, it's all farmers' fields, so you can see for miles. Okay, and so they've seen this ball of light. The girl who was driving, Viv, she tried to put her foot down, but it was like something was putting the brakes on, and they'd seen this light, and then all of a sudden that was that, and it vanished, right? But then they all had missing time. So they went straight to the police station. They then, at a later point, they were all regressed. And what they saw was this ball of light. The car stopped. They were then lifted like anti-gravity, like lifted out, floated out of the car, and they were taken aboard this craft. Now, this craft was a silver disc shaped craft, and there was like a circular door that opened up, and inside these were 4 foot tall humanoids. They were bald. They said they were ugly looking, and they were wearing green robes. And each one of the girls was taken to a different place. The one girl, Viv, she hardly kept in touch. She wanted to move away. She had a very bad experience. She was saying that they were, in her recount of it all, they were intrigued by her, wanted to know how her body worked. And she said that she was in pain, and it was like they were reaching in and grabbing her leg bones. So giving them a shake. Okay, that's how she felt. So she had that experience. The other lady, Rose, she had, like, said, these small entities. They spoke in like a gruff, robotic type voice, and so they were just analysing her and whatnot, but it wasn't anywhere near as shocking. Now, Valerie, who was my friend, she had an experience where there were 2 humanoids. So she had like the best experience out the lot. And there were 2, they were both dressed in white robes. They like had tiaras on, and they looked just completely human. One male, one female. I think the female had blonde hair. The other one had dark hair. And they were intrigued by her clothing, apparently. And the female was more intrigued because they were barefoot, and more intrigued by her shoes. And she wanted to try on Valerie's shoes. And she was apparently trotting up and down in Valerie's shoes. That's what she said. She was also shown star maps and stuff like that. So was Rose. And so they both had different star maps that they showed, but they were both shown these things. The last thing that they did say was they said how to contact them. And they said what you need is 2 women and a man. And I don't know why that is, but it's 2 women and a man. And you were supposed to stand in a circle facing each other, holding onto each other's shoulders. And I tried to get the information out of how exactly was it? How exactly was it that you were supposed to hold the shoulders? But they didn't tell me, and unfortunately she's dead now. But I have thought of something else that's happened in my long past that I told you about the first time that we had an interview. And I'd gone as a small boy to Farnborough Air Show, and I was stood in front of an American plane, and the pilots there with the big reflective glasses. I couldn't see their eyes. All I could see were these glasses. And I wondered, have I missed something? Have they got bigger eyes behind those glasses or something? And he'd put a fluffy bug on my shoulder, and it was a very long, prolonged holding of almost like a transfer of information or something on my shoulder. That was why it was so strange.
Was it your left shoulder?
Uh, No, I think it was my right shoulder. Um, and it was so when she then said about this whole thing about the shoulders, that kind of like, bing, alarm bell went off, and I thought, well, maybe that's connected, maybe it's not, but that's what came to mind. So yeah, as I say, with Valerie's meeting Valerie and getting to know her and all this sort of stuff, we had decided that we were going to try and make contact. Okay, we were going to go out, and I'd sent over messages and stuff like that, and she'd said, right, okay, well, if you come and pick me up, it's we tried to go at the exact same time that it all happened, on the same date, if there was anything that could maybe do a connection, right? So we arranged it all and all this sort of stuff. Now, I was lying in the bath, and that's when I've had a lot of contact before. I got my eyes closed, super relaxed state. And I was just lying there, just not really thinking of anything. And I hear telepathically, "Hello, buddy boy." And I was like, "Hello, buddy boy." I said, "Who is this?" And it came back, "Lieutenant Dan," like off Forrest Gump. But it's very interesting that it would be somebody military in the name, Lieutenant Dan, in that same condescending, horrible way. And I was like,
In other words, it's the usual, we can do what the hell we like, but you can't do a damn thing about it.
yeah,
But you
yeah,
can.
yeah. And so I was like, I've been used to sort of telepathic communication, and I've never had that before. That's somebody who's quite clearly taking the mick, and they're not giving their real name
So
either.
that would be voice to skull, or would it be a different feeling than telepathy?
Well, it was coming in the same, but it was very clear, very, very clear. Sometimes when I'm hearing stuff, it's you hear it like you feel it. So it's like it can be a softly spoken thing, but this was quite abrasive, um, and it was like somebody just taking the mick. I thought, is this another like astral traveler or somebody like that? Somebody just tuned into the same
Well,
frequency.
it sounds like voice to skull, V2K.
Yeah. So, oh, one thing I forgot to tell you. We were talking ages ago about bases, and I was saying about being born at RAF Cosford, and then we were sort of like, well, how far away is RAF Cosford? Okay, right, and it's about 15 minutes as the crow flies. Where I live, I forgot completely. We've got the MOD Donington. Literally, you could throw a stone and hit it. Okay, and that's just on the doorstep. So I forgot to mention
That's a
that.
bit of a thing to forget, like
I,
a major MOD base on your doorstep. Oh, well,
well,
nothing significant there. No reason to mention it.
the,
Or did
right, the
they
only
hypnotize you to not mention it?
right the only trouble is, right, I drive past it every day. It's just
Oh, the old
there.
studio, you pass it every day, MOD base that's got no significance to the story
Yeah,
whatsoever. That's the one you failed to mention.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So,
Suppose you know the canteen and where the gents are.
so
Nothing
sorry about that.
significant there.
So sorry, but I need to add that. So yes, so although Cosford is 15 minutes away, MOD Donington right on the doorstep. But I've got no affiliation with that. It's just close. Okay, so that's kind
Well,
of
they would
why.
tell you to say that anyway, wouldn't they?
Yeah, yeah, it's my bad, my bad. I'm sorry. I own up. Hands up. I own up. Right. Um. Right. Where was I? Where was I thinking? Right. Oh yes, yes. So I was in the bath. I got the message come through. "Hello, buddy boy." hello, buddy boy, who's that? Lieutenant Dan, right? And I was like, oh, sarcastically replied, oh, Lieutenant Dan. So, what do you want? And he replied, we know all about your plan to make contact. And we'd advise you don't do that. And my blood went cold. Um, and
When was this?
This was when I was with, while Valerie was alive, and that was, um,
I mean, at what point during your experiences was this?
this was a few years back, but not um, not a massive amount. So um, this was just before the lockdowns, I think, something
Right. So
around
you're
there.
looking at maybe 2019?
Yeah, 2018, 2019, maybe
Right.
something. Um,
Why do you
and
feel that they waited that long to tell you not to have contact? Okay. Okay, continue. Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Perhaps because I was getting better at it. I was getting more contact. I was getting more information. That's what's coming to me straight away now. So if somebody's guiding me and giving me a nudge right this second, then that's the reason. Um, uh, so so it said we'd advise you don't do that, and I said or else. Um, and
I mean, I
then
have to say, in what tone was it? Was it a threatening tone, or was it we think it would be dangerous for you tone?
no, no, no.
Or
It was. Make no mistake. It was a threat. And then then I said or else what?
yeah,
And
but who were you making contact? Going to make contact with?
well, see, it was with Valerie to go and try and contact who she had the experience with,
And what
or,
did she? What
or
experience did she have? What contact did she have?
so she had the one that I've just told you about, where the ball of light was by the car,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
they had missed time, and she was taken onto the ship. She was
But
shown
but
spots.
what type of ET? Sorry, I'm trying to get a name. I want a name here. Do you have any
Yeah,
name?
yeah. I haven't got a name. I'm afraid they
Greys,
were.
baldies, green,
Yes,
blue,
they
octopus.
were they were the short, 4 foot tall, bald, wearing green robes.
Okay.
And the ones that Valerie saw were like humans on the same ship, 6 foot tall, in white robes. So we were trying
Okay.
to, get establish any form of contact. So he was saying, or else, and I said, or else what? And then I got flashed across my mind images of my family, and I knew exactly what they meant. And so I I was really I mean I was scared, but I was really angry as well. And I said, "How dare you do that?" I said we're one of the infinite light bodies that continues on, and you are trying to threaten me or my family. I said, if anybody goes anywhere near my family, even touches my family, I said, I'll kill them with my bare hands. I said, do I make myself clear? And there was a pause. It was like a stunned pause. And I said again, do I make myself clear? And I got one word reply, crystal.
That means you had an effect on them.
Yeah.
So the cockiness and sort of we can say anything we want and you can't see us and we're somewhere else, you can't reach us.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, Mars, right? I don't know whether you can see this, but I've got
Whoa.
absolute
You got the
goosebumps now.
heebie-jeebies there,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
which means
Uh,
that's a very positive response.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think that's very important from the point of view of anybody who's having voice to skull or being intimidated, whatever. You do have effect on those sending whatever the hell they are.
yeah,
You have a warm,
absolutely.
feely, touchy, happy effect, or you can That's very important. And I mentioned Solaris Blue Raven on that. She managed to get that years ago, been able to affect those who were attacking her. And
Yeah.
that's going back to about 2012. Now, Solaris Blue Raven, very courageous woman. And she was able to get back at those guys. So that's an important point I want to say. And I'm going to do this and let you get on with it.
Yeah. Well, I am. I've got, I have got loads more experiences. I haven't sort of like prepared many more than that. I didn't know how long we were going to chat for. So if at some point you want
Well,
to,
I think we've done a 22 minutes on this final sort of part, so we'll just add this all in one thing. But I think that's enough for now. God.
yeah, sure. But I'm more than happy to carry on talking, discussing some of the other things that I've experienced at another
Well,
point.
I think we've gone on for quite a while. I mean, from a point of view of just being tired and whatever it is, I think this is a good point. Maybe
Okay.
I think this is part 5.
Yeah.
And we'll put that together. And that's very important, that last point, that to anybody, the so-called targeted individuals, it's very important to understand you are an empowered individual and do not play victim on any of this whole stuff. You have control, manifestation powers, and don't be intimidated by anybody. That's
Absolutely, 100%. And you're not alone either. You're not alone, because they will try and make you feel isolated, make you feel afraid, but you're not alone.
I think the reference to the Hunger Games is very important, because I've heard that reference before, which is why we have the Hunger Games on TV in the first place.
Yeah.
And those other types of games, because the reptilian overlords sort of get off on that and how much they can humiliate us and make us look stupid and things. But things have changed. Have you got any sense in your inner spirit or heart of a change in the last 18 months or so?
Yeah, definitely. I've well, you can visually see in some areas, it's kind of like a bit of a seesaw. You're seeing some definite areas where the House of Cards is falling down. But you're talking about entities with all the money, all the power, and everything like that, all the control, and so deeply embedded in our society and stuff like that, that they are very powerful in that sense. But just look at everything they're throwing at us, everything, and humanity is still waking up. And we're going to win. We absolutely are. And there is a distinct change, and we're on the right positive timeline. It's not going to be a bed of roses. It just isn't, right? But we are in the right direction. That's all I can say right now.
Well, I think that's a jolly good word to end on.
Yeah.
So until next time on BasesTV, we'll leave it till then.
Bye-bye.
Good. So I'm going to do a thing called put this in the computer, but I can't rest until it's in the computer. Okay, so that's good, and I'll remotely switch off.